Foolio's killers have just been found dead in prison, days after they were sentenced. And now, all fingers are pointing at law enforcement because of how the case was handled.
I haven't seen more thorough policing than that. That almost leads me to believe that maybe the feds lent a hand, or some assets or resources, or maybe that they got a bigger case.
The case moved too fast, and now, with 2 suspects silenced for good, people are asking the real question: who wanted them gone and then why? Let's break it down. The Foolio 5 and the Florida bloodbath. They thought it was over. Just days after being sentenced for the ruthless, premeditated murder of Jacksonville rapper Foolio, 2 of his alleged killers were found dead in prison. And here's the kicker. Rumors are swirling that this wasn't random prison violence. This was payback, calculated, carried out, and potentially even covered up by those who were supposed to keep them alive for trial. What's worse, the most shocking part of this story hasn't even come out yet, but we'll get to that. Because if you think Foolio's death was tragic, if you think this is just another case of gang beef gone wrong, you're missing the entire point. This was never about just one rapper. It was about revenge. It was about power. And it was about a justice system that seems more like a stage for gladiator games than a place for law and order. So how did it all spiral so violently and so quickly? How did 5 people, including a pregnant woman, end up implicated in a murder that shocked the state of Florida, only to see 2 of them taken out before they could even appeal? Let's rewind this disaster. Foolio, born Charles Jones, was no stranger to controversy. His name was all over diss tracks, rivalries, and street rumors, but to his fans, he was more than a provocateur. He was a talent, a survivor of multiple attempts on his life, until June 23rd, when the final chapter was written in the parking lot of a Tampa hotel, the Home 2 Suites near USF, with 31 bullets. And as wild as that sounds, it wasn't even the beginning. Police say 5 individuals drove hours, 3 hours from Jacksonville to Tampa, with the specific intent to kill Foolio, tracking his every movement as he club hopped for his birthday celebration. The suspects: 30-year-old Rashard Murphy, 27-year-old Davian Murphy, 21-year-old Isaiah Chance, 21-year-old Elisa Andrews, yes, the pregnant woman, and 18-year-old Sean Gaithright. These weren't career hitmen. These were kids, mostly under 25, with more ambition than brains. And once the shooting happened, the evidence came in fast. Surveillance footage? Check. Phone logs? Check. Ring camera footage of the suspects packing weapons and planning the hit like it was a music video? Check. This case had more receipts than an IRS audit. According to Tampa police, the shooters waited across the street from the hotel as Foolio pulled in. They didn't rush. They didn't hesitate. They executed. And when that execution was over, Foolio was gone, dead in the front passenger seat of a vehicle riddled with rifle and handgun fire. And guess what happened next? They celebrated.
And then Davion's texted his thirst has been quenched. And let's go pop a bottle of Don Julio when we get back to Jacksonville. So it's like, I don't know, bro. If you're looking at candidates to fry, like that would be the one, right? Like if you wanted to, okay, we have a death penalty, who deserves it? Like that. I don't know. I would think it would be them.
They popped bottles. They posted about it. They allegedly laughed in private DMs like this was some type of drill rapper scorecard. And now, 2 of them are dead before they could even make it to a full sentencing phase. This wasn't a trial. This was a ticking clock. The female suspect, Elisa Andrews, didn't even try to run. She cooperated almost immediately and gave authorities damning information that showed her phone had tracked Foolio's location through every party and club he went to that night. She didn't pull the trigger, but police say she helped make the shot possible.
Well, last time we did an interview, Foolio had just gotten killed. Now, most of the people are caught. The girl that gave their location, she's cooperating.
Let that sink in. A 21-year-old pregnant woman is now looking at life in prison, or worse, because she was texting locations for her boyfriend and his crew. And guess what she's probably going to do? She's going to flip. According to court filings, she's the only one who didn't waive her right to a speedy trial, which many legal analysts believe is a strategy to secure a plea deal and save herself from a life sentence or the needle. Even Boozy chimed in, saying the cops involved were laughing about Foolio's death and the whole situation stank of bias and injustice. But it gets worse. Rashard Murphy, one of the alleged triggermen, reportedly requested to represent himself in court in a death penalty case. This isn't traffic court. This is you might die by lethal injection court. And still, he thought he could outsmart the legal system. Spoiler alert, he couldn't. As Fox 13 reported, Rashard Murphy is now one of the 2 suspects confirmed dead in prison under unclear circumstances. Was it prison justice? Was it retaliation? Was it tied to Foolio's gang affiliation? Or was this something darker, something inside the system? The Florida Department of Corrections isn't exactly known for transparency. Lowell Correctional Institution, where Elisa may serve time, has long been under scrutiny for violence among inmates, assaults from staff, and a culture of fear.
She's going to have her baby in jail. That baby will be taken away from her, and she'll have to serve the rest of her time. And she's going to do her very best to snitch as hard as possible to minimize her time in that jail so she can get with her newborn baby, which
And
might not be
I'm gonna be honest too. Like, she's most likely still gonna get time. They're gonna send her to low CI, and low CI is a fucked up spot. Like, you got getting bucked in there, so it's like you're like a famous rat.
As for the shooters, they were sent to Florida State Prison, where past scandals include guards being charged with murder, inmates dying under suspicious circumstances, and cover-ups that would make a Netflix docuseries look tame. This is where the system eats its own, and that's why what happened next was predictable. Within days of sentencing, both Rashard and Sean Gaithright were pronounced dead. Unconfirmed reports suggest one was killed during an altercation with another inmate, a hit arranged through gang connections. The other's cause of death still under investigation. And suddenly, the case that was airtight is unraveling in a different direction. Two key suspects are gone. Elisa's flipping. Davian Murphy, the final suspect captured, was caught because he couldn't stay off social media. He literally taunted people from Jacksonville, saying he ain't going nowhere. And guess what? He didn't.
That's his final. He's a dumb mother, because he was going on one of those like little chat things online, talking, saying, I'm gonna pull up, I'm gonna do this, And the whole time he was in Jacksonville. Like, he never left.
The man plotted an assassination, committed murder, and then stayed in the same city where he knew cops would look first. They called them the Foolio 5. Now it's down to 3. And there's blood on the floor before the trial even started. And just when you thought this couldn't get messier, when the system finally had the Foolio 5 in custody, everything starts breaking down. Let's talk about Davian Murphy. He was the last to be caught, but not because he was smart, not because he skipped town, covered his tracks, or hid out in South America. No, this man stayed right there in Jacksonville, posting reckless messages on anonymous chat apps, mocking people who were actively hunting him down. One message he posted literally dared people to pull up, while another implied he was untouchable. And that's how he got caught.
So they just arrested the final suspect in Foolio's murder.
Right.
He was on the run for 6 months. And there's a photo that we'll show right now. He's actually like smiling.
Yeah.
You know, after they cuff him up. I guess, I don't know. He wants to act tough with his last
that's his
freedom.
final hoorah before it's honey buns and noodles for ever. That's his final. He's a dumb mother.
Davion never left the area. The authorities didn't even need advanced tracking tech to catch him. His own hubris handed him over. This wasn't a man afraid of prison. This was a man chasing clout until the bars slammed shut behind him. But it's what Davion did before he got caught that might explain what happened later. Remember this name? Spaz. Spaz was allegedly Davion's brother. And Spaz? He was reportedly killed in a prior gang-related shooting involving one of Foolio's close associates. Foolio didn't just respond with lyrics. He responded with straight-up desecration. There are videos of Foolio's affiliates literally urinating on Spaz's grave. And Foolio himself reportedly referenced that in his music, mocking the dead with the kind of venom most rappers wouldn't dare put on wax. Mob James explained the whole thing, laying out the clear motive. So when Davion and Rashard allegedly pulled the trigger on Foolio in that hotel parking lot, some believe it was personal. This wasn't just about a diss. This was about blood. And that's where the narrative takes a dark turn. One that people don't want to talk about publicly. Because the very people who laughed at Foolio's murder, the very people who ignored his mother's cries for justice, are now investigating how 2 of his killers mysteriously ended up dead in custody. Let's rewind. When Foolio was killed, he was being tailed by multiple vehicles. Surveillance footage, plate readers, and even Cash App transactions were used to track down everyone involved. One of the shooters allegedly used a Cash App card to book the hotel. Another suspect was seen literally loading AK-style rifles into a car, caught in crystal clear footage thanks to Tesla's built-in cameras and Ring doorbell surveillance.
You got the Teslas that are acting like sentries with 360 camera. It's the clearest camera ever, 4K.
This was a digital crime scene from start to finish. They didn't just get caught. They left a breadcrumb trail of stupidity that prosecutors are now feasting on. But why does that matter? Because when inmates like Rashard and Sean died behind bars, the prison system refused to give a straight answer. At first, it was chalked up to inmate violence, but anonymous insiders suggest otherwise. That word had spread in the yard, that Foolio's connections ran deeper than just music, that people inside the prison knew exactly who the shooters were and decided to handle it the old-fashioned way. One story that surfaced anonymously claimed that Rashard was cornered in a hallway, assaulted brutally, and left without aid for hours. Another suggests Sean was taken out in his sleep. These are unconfirmed, but if even part of that is true, the bigger story isn't just that they're dead, it's who let it happen. Because if the Florida Department of Corrections has a problem with turning a blind eye, this isn't just a story about gang wars, it's a story about state-sanctioned revenge. Just listen to what 1090 Jake said about the Florida prison system.
And low CI is a up spot. Like, you got getting bucked in there, so it's like you're like a famous rat. You know what I mean? But they more so be going after the girls that be killing their own kids and like crazy like that. But low CI, the Florida Department of Corrections doesn't f off. It's very much like it's war. You know what I mean? You got COs killing people, inmates killing people. So what they have to look forward to isn't anything nice. And then obviously if any of them get death, that's a whole nother different story.
This is not hypothetical. This is a known pattern. Florida's correctional institutions are infamous for excessive force, inmate deaths, and widespread abuse. And whether you believe it or not, the evidence suggests this was never just about justice. This was about erasure. They didn't want a trial. They wanted silence, and they got it. 2 suspects silenced forever. A system that kills before the verdict. By the time the second body hit the prison floor, no one was asking, how did this happen? They were asking, how did anyone not see this coming? Florida's correctional system is no stranger to scandal, but the speed and silence around the deaths of Rashard Murphy and Sean Gaithright, 2 of the alleged killers of Julio Foolio, has sparked whispers even in the halls of law enforcement. According to insiders, there were multiple signs, fights, isolation requests, written complaints, all ignored. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Some people wanted them dead, and in Florida State Prison, that can be arranged. Let's rewind. Rashard Murphy was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, the same as the others, but his case quickly went off the rails. In court documents obtained by local media, Rashard requested to dismiss his attorney and represent himself. Multiple outlets reported that his behavior raised concerns. He wasn't just defiant, he was frustrated, complaining he couldn't communicate with counsel, that he was being treated as if he'd already been convicted.
I think this guy's nuts. I think that's why. I mean, he wants to defend himself, which is insane in a death penalty case, and then he actually has said that he may use an insanity defense, which also is insane in itself when the facts show otherwise, that these guys had meticulous planning and attempts to cover up crime. And when you have that, good luck in getting an insanity defense, because to sustain an insanity defense, you have to have an established medical condition and you have to not know the difference between right and wrong. But when you meticulously plan and then try to cover up your tracks, that shows you knew the difference between right and wrong. It shows you knew what you did was illegal. And when you want to just try to put forward an insanity defense as your own lawyer, it doubles the level of difficulty.
And then came the letter. Rashard wrote to the judge claiming deputies at the jail were blocking his mail, restricting his calls, and preventing him from preparing a defense. This wasn't a man posturing. This was a man unraveling. And when you mix desperation with reputation in a Florida prison, that's a recipe for violence. We've seen it before. Back in 2012, Darren Rainey, a mentally ill inmate at Dade Correctional Institution, was boiled alive in a scalding shower by corrections officers, his skin literally peeling off in sheets. Nobody was charged for 4 years. In 2015, multiple guards at Franklin Correctional were found to be part of a white supremacist gang operating inside the prison. And in 2020, a whistleblower exposed that guards at Lowell Correctional Institution, the same facility where Elisa Andrews might be sent, were coercing female inmates into degrading acts under threat of violence. So when 2 young black men, freshly charged with killing a famous rapper, end up dead within days of sentencing, that doesn't sound like bad luck. That sounds like pattern, especially considering the gang affiliations involved. Let's be clear. Foolio wasn't just a rapper. He was the face of a clique called 6 Block, and his rivals, ATK and 1200, the same groups law enforcement believes coordinated the murder in retaliation for past killings. But this feud goes back years.
This is something in Jacksonville that is very well known. These videos, both by our victim as well as by the rival gangs, are posted immediately. It's in the public domain, and it details this long-standing feud.
Foolio's own lyrics reference multiple real-life deaths. His visuals often include disrespect toward his rivals' graves. In one of the most infamous incidents, his affiliates defiled the grave of a rival, believed to be Spaz, the brother of Rashard and Davion Murphy.
That's the same guy who, after the murder, allegedly sent out a text, "I'm coming home, my thirst is finally quenched." Like, it was a mission for him. So, I mean, if we're talking about motive, that's classic get back, right? Hey, his people did something to my brother. They kept laughing about it. They've desecrated his gravesite. This is a rapper who's been known to make videos at gravesite or laugh at the dead. Now, we get to laugh at it.
That text wasn't just a flex, it was a blood oath fulfilled. So what happens when that kind of beef spills into a Florida prison, where gangs, guards, and politics collide? It turns into a war zone. 1090 Jake, a former inmate turned prison reform advocate, described Florida's jails and prisons as nothing short of urban battlegrounds. He says fights are expected, extortion is routine, and murder isn't an outlier. It's strategy. So when Sean Gaithright, only 18 years old, he reportedly died in custody, no one was shocked. An 18-year-old, charged with murder, facing the death penalty, and now he's gone, dead before a judge or jury could hear his story. Did he even understand the consequences of what he'd signed up for? Because here's what people forget. Most of the Foolio 5 were barely out of their teens. They weren't calculating career criminals. They were digital-age soldiers in a war they didn't start. And now, 2 of them are corpses. But why is no one talking about the role the system played? Why is there more outrage over a diss lyric than there is over multiple deaths in custody? Because it's easier to paint these men as monsters than it is to ask the hard questions. Like, why were high-risk defendants housed in general population within days of sentencing? Why were written complaints from Rashard ignored? Who approved the transfer of gang-affiliated inmates into rival pods? And more chillingly, who benefits from their silence? Because dead men don't testify. Dead men don't cut deals. Dead men don't reveal the deeper layers of a war that may stretch into law enforcement and politics. And trust, this war is deeper than rap. Let's talk about how it all came to a head that night in Tampa. Foolio was in town celebrating his birthday. He was documenting every move on Instagram, clubs, parties, and eventually the Home 2 Suites hotel where he'd spend the night.
Jones was in town celebrating his birthday and posted on his social media his locations several times throughout that night. Surveillance video was critical in this investigation, as suspects were seen on video following Jones from location to location.
Unbeknownst to him, a team of 5 was following. 2 cars, multiple weapons, 3 hours of travel from Jacksonville, a mission fueled by vengeance. The girl, Elisa, reportedly tracked Foolio's movements via text. Her phone location, GPS logs, and social media posts tied her directly to the trail. They knew when he was at the B&B. They knew when he got to Tampa. They followed him to each club, and then they waited. Foolio didn't die instantly, but he didn't stand a chance. His body was found slumped in the front seat, riddled with bullets. 3 other people were wounded. None of them were the target. But here's what should freeze you. Every step of the murder was caught on camera.
They were caught on license plate cameras. He used his mama's car. His mama said, I ain't had that car, then my son had it.
Surveillance footage, license plate readers, Ring doorbells, phone logs, Cash App receipts.
They found bullets in that kid's house. They found one of the murder weapons. They found bullets matching from the shooting scene. This kid kept collectibles from the case, like mad inside of his house.
The level of evidence is almost unprecedented, to the point where 1090 Jake said,
Well, it's not like they're going to get off for this.
No, they got so much evidence against them. Like, when you go through it, you can pretty much just, all right, pick a prison. Where do y'all want to go? It's not, you can't even come up with a defense for them.
They were cooked from the moment they pulled the trigger, but the system didn't wait for the verdict. It made its own judgment. It played executioner. And now there are only 3 left. A pregnant woman, a delusional fugitive who thought Instagram DMs made him immortal, and a man trying to mount an insanity defense while the judge prepares for a death penalty trial. This is beyond hip-hop. This is a death spiral. And the most disturbing part, nobody wins. Foolio is dead. 2 suspects are dead. 1 woman might give birth in shackles, and the rest facing decades or death behind bars. But this isn't just about this case, because if we zoom out, we're seeing a pattern across the country. Drill rappers murdered in coordinated hits, retaliation killings celebrated like viral TikToks, and young black men being pumped into a justice system that seems more invested in spectacle than in solutions. The question isn't who did it. The question is who allowed it? Who allowed these young men to be radicalized into a digital war where death is currency and Instagram clout is king? Who let the prison system